Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here of talking about right here of talking about music right here, talking about for music radio, and you see right here is I went ahead and put together right here. But I don't know if we've seen this right here. Talk about for Haley Sanfield, to say Sanfield, song right here, the music. Talk about for I've been hoping right here. And so yeah, talk about with the music lyrics. The music lyric will be like I've been hoping, that but still that talking about with for music though, and music photography, and I know photography is something that I want to talk about also whenever it comes to photography. What's a good way of how we want to describe photography though? That's another way of how you want to describe that to word, yeah, it's a way of how you wanted to talk about is toward the, yeah, that you look at some of the photographs and maybe certain moments of time, and maybe I'm like, anything that you're thinking about whenever you look at any sorts of photographs. So I'm like, 102, that what exactly do you think about whenever you listen to music? And I have right here, this right here will be a painting right here. I'll talk about for music right here, and talk about for good on paper, good, but still that they talk about for I've been hoping right here, and but still that when we think about photography though, that are we necessarily thinking about photography such as to where that you're taking pictures and maybe like talking about for the maybe if it's the color solution or anything such as to where the, yeah, if you like you talk about maybe wallpaper or something like that, so like a lot of times it sure seems that we've seen it on our devices to where if it's going to be on an iPhone, or if it's going to be anything such as maybe scrapbooking or something like that, different ways of how you want to talk about, how you want to describe photography. But I have right here of showing right here. This right here will be example right here of an actual, I'm like, yeah, illustration painting right here of for Haley right here, for Haley Sanfield, and talk about for for the Pandora, and also that for iTunes radio. So a lot of times that a few of those other music artists that we've heard about and seen, and a lot of time like a couple of them, I'm like, yeah, talking about like, yeah, if it's Beautiful Mistakes or something like that, or Maroon, or if it's you Imagine Dragon or any other sorts of music artist, anybody like that. And a lot of times it sure seems that way, that whenever we think about photography, that we're also, are we necessarily thinking about is toward that maybe beautiful looks and beautiful fashions and faces or anything like that? Are we groups and photos and maybe people? I'm like, whenever we think about a photograph though, yeah, do we really necessarily think about is toward, okay, you take a picture, right? But then if you're going to go ahead and maybe add a text right there on the top right there, and maybe if you're going to go ahead and include like maybe any source of border or something like that, something like, if you're going to maybe include like maybe a background or something like that. But I have right here, I talk about free music right here, and so I know that we've heard like if it's Maroon 5 or something like that, or if it's any other source of music artist, like, yeah, Taylor Swift or any other source of music artist. And you want to know just a little bit too toward it when we think about photography, though, that if it's going to maybe be at the concerts or at the festival or anything, that what exactly comes to our mind when we think about photography? Do we think about necessarily about still picture, or do we think about maybe the color solution, or like anybody probably thinking too is toward it when we listen to music a lot of times, that you're going to be listening to the live radio, and you're maybe able to listen to maybe concerts, maybe the special events, and maybe the concerts, the live concerts or something like that that's going on in the live station or something like that. And 102 is to where, yeah, you look at a poster board, and I thinking too is to where, yeah, you actually see a picture of like maybe the studio or something like that, right there, and then you're able to listen to to the station, to where if it's going to be a radio station or something like that. But you see right here that if we can see this right here, talk about for for the singer right here, and want to know just a little bit too toward it. When we think about photography, though, are we necessarily thinking about a still picture, or are we thinking necessarily about is this toward it? Yeah, we go ahead and think about is that we actually want to think about getting into the cars, or maybe getting on the subway, or maybe getting on the metro, going to the metro station, or thinking about traveling somewhere, or going on an adventure or something like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that when we think about photography, though, that we think about we imagine maybe a still picture of, like, yeah, a moment of time, especially. So let's just say that if I were to write on here, talk about for a moment of time, to where when we think about music, though, music to our ears, it's supposed to take, like, yeah, talk about for a moment of time. Hey, I'm like, yeah, go ahead and start right here at the capital. A moment of time. A moment in time. So it sure seems that way, that when we think about that, a moment in time, and a lot of us will probably say too that, when we think about music a lot of times, that is that going to kind of remind us just a little bit about us as toward, yeah, that's going to want to take our mind toward that, yeah, when we think about a song, is that going to remind us just a little bit of what you call like one of our favorite moments? Or, yeah, you're going to maybe want to think about is that, yeah, how you met somebody, or, yeah, you go to a concert, or, a lot of times it sure seems that way, that whenever we listen to the radio, though, that's going to maybe kind of remind us just a little bit of a lot of things, so far as that, yeah, for how you met somebody, or maybe something like such. I'm like, yeah, that, talking about that, yeah, talk about for ice creams, and like a strawberry ice cream, and or something like that. But still, I know with me, though, that whenever I think about music, a lot of times that's going to remind me of moments of going to the library. Yeah, going to the library, and maybe going to a festival or something like that. And a lot of times, anybody that's maybe going to be asking me as to where, what exactly is it that you're thinking about whenever you listen to music, and whenever you think about certain things. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, whenever you take pictures of certain events and think about certain things, and, putting together puzzles and all that. But still, that when we think about photography, though, that we necessarily thinking about toward a, yeah, when we think about a photograph, though, that we think about that moment of time, to where that if it's really testing the knowledge, or if anything is to where capturing those moments, to where, okay, whenever you take a photograph of something, that is that going to kind of like, yeah, anything such as, people might even say too that, yeah, if it's going to be an interview, or if it's going to be a concert, and people might even say too if it's going to maybe be related to maybe a magazine or something like that, or maybe anything such as to where maybe a posting to a publishing, like, yeah, if it's going to be the concert or an activity or something like that. But when we think about a photograph, though, what exactly are we necessarily thinking about when we think about that? Are we thinking about still moments? And a lot of times it sure seems that way, that, aren't photographs necessarily made for that purpose, to where that we think about it as to where, yeah, this right here is not a photograph, everybody. This right here is a painting. It's an illustration painting. But if we were to be thinking about that, with the photograph, though, that if we were to actually check out toward it, if we would be using programs such as maybe Distiller, or maybe Photoshop, just to be able to check out toward it, certain photographs, certain photographs, that there are programs that could be able to match about as toward it, exactly about how the file was created, and then how it was modified and all that, and then anything about the illustration photos or anything like that. That there's ways of how you can tell that, for anything about what you call, anything flattened, and any sorts of transparency or anything like that. But still, that whenever we think about a photograph, though, a lot of times, that all we necessarily thinking about is that still pictures and still moments, and anything that we're able to remember. And so far as that, yeah, whenever we take a photograph of something, that are we necessarily sending anybody. I'm like, are we providing any source of information so far as, yeah, this is where I am and, this is what I've seen? I'm like, yeah, most of the time with most photographs, though, most photographs would show sceneries. Yeah, sceneries about a lot of these music artists would say is to where if you go to different sceneries and different events, I'm like, oh yeah, if you're able to go to certain areas and certain places and you're able to take certain photographs of something, and a lot of times it sure seems that way that when we think about photographs though, and let's just say that if a music artist wants to go ahead and film a certain scenery, like you say that, yeah, if it's maybe at a park or maybe like what you call that, maybe somewhere downtown or at a restaurant or somewhere like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way that whenever it comes to music radio and whenever it comes to photographing something, that you probably want to know too is toward that a lot of these devices that allow us to take the pictures, right? But a lot of times it sure seems that way that with photographs though, that whenever you start running out of film though, and like everybody might want to know too, that some photographs that do take up a lot of resolutions and all that, and so I might talk about for HD and high definition type photographs, and so that's why it sure seems that way that whenever we think about a still photograph right here, and let's just say that maybe at the color solution or the ISO readings or anything like that, like say, yeah, it needs to be focused. I'm like, yeah, some of the pictures, and sometimes that the pictures need to be focused, and also that if you're trying to get it on a good scale of good resolutions or the ISO level or something like that. And so that's why it sure seems that way that whenever you do take a picture of something and maybe use it as like for a design, like for a poster design, or maybe for any sort of a flyer of some sort. And let's just say, like anybody say, that if you're going to be doing any sorts of Photoshop work, and maybe that you would maybe add like maybe a GIF file or something like that, something to represent, maybe for Automate or something like that. But anyway, but I thought I'd show everybody here. This right here is a painting. I don't know if everybody has seen this right here, but this right here is something I was working on. About I think it was about a year and a half ago whenever I was working on this, and I wasn't sure if we've all seen it, but still, talk about for the music artists, right? But still, what does it usually mean whenever you do, whenever you take a photograph of something, but still, that like a lot of everybody, people might even say too that if you got in your practice with taking a photograph of something, or just like, if you just want to go ahead and paint a picture of something and do some Photoshop work with something, or, using a program just to be able to develop any source of work on a project or anything like that. And 102 is toward it, whenever you come up with an idea about putting together a masterpiece for a poster design right here. And for my instance, it's to where that I go ahead and draw a portrait right here, and I try and make it as artistic as I can. And people might even want to know too is to where if you want to go ahead and maybe like anybody say that, maybe add some music or something like that. But still, that I actually this illustration painting right here, I was working this in Photoshop, and I could probably say is that if you want to go ahead and add in some details right there, but talk about for I've been hoping right there, and so yeah, if it's supposed to be related to a typical music artist, if it's Maroon 5, or if it's Haley Sandfield, or if it's going to be any other source of music artist, it sure seems that way if it's going to be copyright also, but then still that if we're talking about for photographs though, that we want to know too that when we take a photograph though, that it sure seems that way that we think about is that okay, about when we take a photograph of something and we try to share it with somebody, And a lot of times it sure seems that way, that yeah, you go ahead and add a story along with that. And also if you want to include like on a Facebook page or even on Instagram, that what sorts of music do you like listening to, whenever you connect it, even on social media, what sorts of music do you like listening to? And let's just say this, somebody that might even say that, yeah, well, if you want to use something like this, maybe for your profile, to where the, yeah, you were actually using this as like a wallpaper design just to represent, to where that, yeah, one of your favorite groups or one of your favorite artists that you like listening to on the radio. And so whenever you were using that just to demonstrate what sorts of music artists that you like listening to, and let's just say that you go ahead and paint a picture of just something like this right here. And let's just say that if you go ahead and maybe later on you go and add a background right there, to where the background right there would include like something like what you call like a sound stage, or maybe like a concert scene or something like that. So it's like anybody might want to know too that whenever you start working on any source of activity, it sure seems that way, that you were actually trying to develop, like, I don't know, a theme or anything like that, but you were actually trying to develop any sorts of masterpiece, to where you go ahead and draw a portrait, to where that whenever you listen to music on the radio, what exactly that comes to your mind whenever you picture that, whenever you picture something. And so a lot of times it's like, yeah, whenever you take a photograph of something, you are actually taking a photograph of something in the present, right? Something at a scene location. You're not actually drawing the masterpiece just by your imagination. So a lot of what I'm working with right here is actually drawing from my imagination. But you're still, that like anybody say, you get some ideas just by watching music videos and all that. But still, that it's like it sure seems that way, that whenever I do work on something like this, and it sure seems that way, that you go ahead and listen to music though. And yeah, I don't know all the lyrics to all the songs and all that, but what the song is going to be is like, I've been hoping, like, I've been hoping. So yeah, talk about the music lyrics. It's like an good on paper, good, don't you picture perfect, or something like that. So yeah, I don't even know if that's really in the song lyrics, but let's just say if there's a song that goes by saying it's like for Haley Sample, I say, yeah, well, for picture perfect, you may know that, or something like that, or your picture perfect moment, or something like that. But you're still, whenever we take a picture of something, though, if it's going to be at a restaurant or maybe at a concert or something like that you want to know too, that how many pictures are you going to maybe be taking by, as to word, if you're going to maybe taking maybe drinking coffee or something like that, or maybe enjoying a moment of iced tea or something like that, or maybe if you're going to be eating spaghetti and meatballs or something like that, or maybe soup, you're going to maybe eating soup while you're at that dinner. And you want to know too that you take pictures while you're eating, and maybe while you're exchanging gifts or anything. And people may want to know too that yeah, you got a little bit of spaghetti sauce right there on your lips or something like that, or yeah, just a little bit of coffee or so yeah, if you're drinking coffee, or maybe if you're drinking, if you're yeah, drinking coffee, or maybe if you're enjoying a smoothie or something like that, if you're at a restaurant, at any sorts of gathering, that you would maybe think about that, as to where yeah, you take a picture. And a lot of times in some of those pictures may come out of focus. Some of them may even come out blurry. Some of them that people may ask you to please take, if you can take the picture again, because it came out of focus or something. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever I do Photoshop and illustration work, that I go ahead and work a little bit more using the tools, to where I go ahead and draw out, to where that from anything for what I can imagine, and also the best of my memory, to where okay, I think this looks good best this way, this looks good that way. And so whenever I do work a masterpiece of something, that I basically am putting together what I really highly suggest, or what looks good for that photograph. So whenever we think about photography, though, and let's just say if we're talking about maybe for the festival sales or anything such as maybe the concerts or anything like that, or maybe the car sales, that anything that you would strongly suggest, for the management or maybe the companies to use, that sorts of thing. But still, I had not worked at a music store, I had not worked at a music store, but let's just say if I were to work at a music store, people maybe say is toward that, you got a couple of clients, you got a couple of clients who would maybe ask you to word it that, yeah, if there's music, any source of music or any source of music records that they would like to get a copy of, or concert tickets or anything like that. So it's like we want to know too that whenever it comes to music artists and festivals, and I'm sure sometime this summer that there's going to be a lot of festivals and a lot of that coming to town, and 102 is that yeah, that whenever it comes to music artists and all that, and you're likely 102 that yeah, whenever you take a photograph of something, that it's supposed to be like a still image right here. It's supposed to be like a still image right here, and we're likely 102 is that what exactly are we thinking about when we take a still picture of something? And a lot of times, like everybody else would probably say too, that not everybody has time really to draw out the details to where if there's a background of maybe a few trees, or maybe at the concert, or maybe back like the national parks or something like that, or maybe at the beach or at the ocean, the oceans, or at the ice cream place or something like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that when we think about concerts and music and all that, and a lot of times it's like, yeah, well, if you're able to, a lot of times I've seen it to where if you're trying to take a picture of something, and for any reason at all, that if the flash is just not working right or something like that, sometimes the pictures they come out of focus, and so that's why it sure seems that way, that you want to know too that yeah, this picture right here looks really like, yeah, if you're able to see people's faces and all that whenever you take the picture. But sometimes whenever you take a picture, we're using that camera, and then sometimes that you may not be able to see everybody's faces, and you may not be able to tell where that picture was taken and all that. So that's why it sure seems that way, that when we think about photography, though, that we're also thinking about that, yeah, do we necessarily need to think about that to where, okay, the flash is working, or what camera were you using during the time, or you were not using that old Polaroid camera or the Android camera that you usually use or something like that, so like anybody say too, that if you're going to have your camera, and you want to know too that maybe one full roll of film that you were trying to use, and you're one that whenever you do run out of roll, run out of film at some point, if you buy a brand new roll of film, and let's just say that you try to take at least 27 pictures from a festival that you went to, or maybe from a group or an event that you went to, and you're likely 102 that you're trying to get everybody all in that picture there, and it seems like it just doesn't work all the time. And so it's like you want to know too. It's like, if you've been hoping for a better opportunity for something like that, kind of like say, yeah, you're trying to take a picture of something and find out that yeah, sometimes that you have more luck with that, and sometimes that you don't have too much luck with that. And so it's like you want to know too that whenever you take a picture of something, it's like, yeah, you take a picture and you send it to a friend of yours, and you want to know too that, yeah, if you're trying to make it a little bit bigger, or if you're trying to get a copy of it, but still. So it's a lot of times it sure seems that way, that with our cameras nowadays, it's like, yeah, that our cameras nowadays, that if you have it to where you can actually do like a studio view, and like, yeah, do slideshows, and what what exactly are slideshows? And it's another way of how you can show, like, yeah, what are slideshows? These slideshows. Slideshows are basically, it's like a film strip. Yeah, it's a film strip. So basically, that yeah, it's a film script described as to where that multiple sources of media, multiple sources of media, multiple sources, yeah, multiple sources of media, all put together. So yeah, so when we think about photographs, so that we actually, if we're thinking about that, to where that we look at photographs, if we're talking about the whole roll of film, that we're talking about different slides, and if you have just like if you're going to be reading maybe a comic book or something like that, that if you were to be taking multiple pictures and doing different slides, though, that yeah, those different slides are going to show these pictures doing different things and doing different effects and all that, and 3D effects or anything. So a lot of times it's like people might even say too that if you're taking multiple pictures at a time, then chances are that it's really recommended to go ahead and form them into a slide. And so it's like, yeah, you may have first started out with just taking one or two pictures, and you were trying to you were trying to capture certain moments of time, and those moments of time to where that you were actually listening to the music, and then you were looking at the clouds right there on the left, or looking at the south or the east or something like that. So yeah, a lot of things that we see in our photographs, and in 102, that if you were taking a photograph, and let's just say that if it came out too dark and maybe too light or something like that, but still. But I know with me though that looking at this poster right here, and I know that I tell people too that yeah, whenever you're going to be working on some of your paintings, though, that a lot of things what's come to your mind, especially, and like, what exactly is it that you're trying to tell everybody else here? And I'm like, yeah, well, you listen to the radio, and you listen to a song that you enjoy listening to, and let's just say if it's from one of your favorite, I'm like, yeah, a music artist, or maybe I'm like, yeah, in case if anybody may ask me that, well, why don't you do a coloring about, yeah, if it's Megan Trainor or Cassie Ballerini, like one of those country stars, or if it's maybe Maroon 5, or any other music artist, and Imagine Dragons, and also yeah, that Jennifer Lopez. I'm like, oh yeah, so any other sorts of musical artist or anybody like that. But it's like, yeah, that I whenever I was working on this, I kept thinking too that, yeah, I add in right there for 2020, but still, if we were all able to see this right here, but still, that talk about for concerts right here, but whenever we think about that, though, is that if you're trying to take a photograph of something, and let's just say if you're trying to, I'm like, yeah, if you're at a dinner at a festival or something like that, but still, and talk about for I've Been Hoping, and so yeah, that a few of the other songs that I heard about on the radio, and whenever you listen to those songs, though, what exactly is that really? I'm like, yeah, whenever I listen to songs, a lot of times, it sure seems that way. That what exactly are you thinking about whenever you do listen to a lot of these songs and these artists here? I think about school, and I also think about vacations too. I think about romance, and I also think about vacations, but then I also think about is toward the, yeah, something about on the imaginable. I also think about is that whenever you're going to be working at your own time, working on a portrait painting, and thinking about, this looks good, and this looks good this way, looks good that way. And so whenever I do think about that, I also keep thinking too is toward, okay, after you listen to a certain song by that certain artist, though. And that just think about is toward, yeah, whenever I think about the song Haley's song, that a lot of times, why is it that it's going to kind of remind me just a little bit of college year? It's going to remind me just a little bit of road trip, and it's also going to remind me just a little bit about is to where maybe the girls, the girls club or something like that. So it's like, whenever we think about songs, though, that what exactly is it that we thinking about necessarily too? Are we thinking about the party or something like that, the party mix or something? Whenever we listen to those radio stations, a lot of times it seems like that there's gonna be party mix and party mix, and then there's these radio stations and party mix, and then what 105.2 FM or something like that. You got the FM radio. So a lot of times I'm like, I think that would be capital too. But anyway, so whenever we listen to these radio stations, a lot of times it sure seems that way. That you're actually, you could be listening live by streaming. You could be connecting to that radio station by streaming. And let's just say that if you're going to be on your smartphone or if you're going to be on your tablet, listen to that radio station, and you come across one of those favorite radio hosts, and they're going to say is to where, hey, thanks for listening, or something like that. And they're going to say is to where, about registering. And then they'll tell you that, well, what does it usually mean? What does it mean to register? And I want to talk about that to everybody here. Well, I'm like, after you get done listening to a song, register. What does it usually mean to register? And it basically means is to where you are pretty much, you're signing up. You're signing up to receive information. So that you go to the websites, and also you're able, you're probably, you could probably also text, you could probably request information by text message also. But really though, what does you usually mean whenever you do register? And a lot of times, by say, if you're going to be listening to the radio stations, a lot of times listen to a certain radio host, or maybe a presenter or somebody like that, or maybe any sorts of colleague or somebody like that. And you want to know too is to where if you're going to be listening to the radio and listen to a song, and people are going to say is to where you can go ahead and register, go to our, or listen, listen live at our or their website, or something like that. Or like anybody might even say too that if you can actually go to like sites like Amazon. Amazon may have something too. Like Pandora. Amazon Music, and then it's also any other websites that you can download music to also. But still, that but it sure seems that way. That like people might even say too that you actually got the idea just by taking a photograph. Whenever you were actually on Instagram, that afternoon, if you actually were able to be directed to a link, you seen a tab while you were, I'm like, you seen an ad for something on on your page, and you actually clicked on that, and you were directed to an invite to where that for a music artist, and about the music or something. So it's another way of how you want to call it. Just a kind of like an invite or something, but still. But if you're going to be listening to the radio right here, and the 102 that, whenever you take a photograph of something, then that's going to kind of remind you to where that, you take a photograph of something, and, your 102 is to where that you actually, if people know how to do that you can actually set slideshows, you can actually set story lines and slideshows to your photographs, and those photographs can include like a story, like a storytelling theme or something like that, something that you want to talk about. So far as what exactly is it about these photographs that you want to share, that you want to talk about? And as somebody even say that you actually took that photograph whenever you were at dinner, or that something that you were doing with your kids or something like that, or it was actually a song that you were listening to, and that you were able to win a ticket, to go to a concert or something like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that people might even say that you actually won tickets. If you won tickets to go to the concert. So whenever you do win a ticket to go to the concert, that you actually, So it's like people might even say that you kind of, got the idea just by listening to the radio, and that you actually, I'm like, yeah. If you, I'm like anybody else would probably say too, but once you figure it out, of course, like, yeah, you were taking a photograph, or you were actually, on at the app store, you were actually checking out the music app from the app store until you actually heard the winning, I'm like, yeah, you were listening to the radio, and you actually, heard the winning number. I'm like, yeah, if you hear the winning number, or if you retrieve a code or something like that, just by listening live, just by listening to that radio station, and you were able to get information that way. So it sure seems that way. Like anybody else would probably say too, that if you were actually, getting on your smartphone and actually, I'm like, yeah, looking at your messages, or I'm like, yeah, or if you were actually looking at your pictures, or if you were actually, listening live to maybe to a radio station, and let's just say that that radio station actually told you that the next time you go to your Facebook page, or the next time you go to your Instagram page, or if it's on Twitter, or if it's going to be, any other source of social media site that you check out, and anybody say that, yeah, well, if you go, if you do go to maybe, like, yeah, social, any other social media site like Twitter, Instagram, and if you go to, like, yeah, YouTube, or, if you go to, like, yeah, LinkedIn, or if it's, like, yeah, Pinterest, or, like, yeah, so, like, any other source of media site, but still, that, whenever you're going to be on social media, that you might see an advertisement for something or anything like that, and you want to know too is toward that, yeah, you're going to see advertisements on almost everywhere, and people might even say that, with these advertisements though, if you see an advertisement for something, advertise, adver, advertise, yeah, if you're going to see an advertisement for something, that could also maybe be a bias toward it. Just if you're not, just to keep, I'm like, yeah, if you're familiar with, that event, if you're familiar with that event, or if you've heard of it, I'm like, yeah, if you've heard of that. So in case of anybody that may want to know too, that yeah, anything anything that kind of catches your mind, whenever you see something that looks very, very familiar, it could be a concert, or it could be an event, or something like that, some source like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that yeah, you listen to the radio, and then you heard about maybe the concert tickets, or you heard about that music artist is coming to town, or something like that. So it's like, yeah, live in New York, or maybe live in maybe Tennessee, or maybe in Florida, or somewhere like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that people might even say that, well, how did you hear about the concerts? And a lot of people might even say that, you listened to the radio, or you read about it in the papers, or something like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that, whenever you take a photograph of something, and then it's kind of like it all, pass it on to where, like, yeah, it seems like, pass on, it seems like it's all, I don't know, if people may say too that if you really, I might say, pass it on, but if you want to write that, like you pass that on, or if anything, they say that whenever you do take a photograph of something, that you actually yeah, if you're sharing that moment to where to actually take a photograph, though, that you're basically are publishing it, you're sharing it on a social media site, right? Whenever you take a photograph like that, and sometimes it seems like that, sharing your photograph should be the same way developing film. And I'll go and write this right here, everybody. That whenever you take a photograph, though, you're developing you're developing your film. Your film. So it's basically another way of how you want to call it, as to where you're developing your film. That film to where it's visible. It is visible to those friends. I'm like, yeah, those people, to those viewers, people who actually are following. I'm like, yeah. So it sure seems that way, that I can go and put on here that visible to the activity. I'll just say the activity, because I know most of us who get on Facebook a lot of times would probably need to know that especially anything private that you could be working on, anything that you could be working on, such as if it's supposed to be, yeah, whenever you meet somebody, if you want to have like maybe a private conversation, or maybe that there's other people who would maybe like to join the conversation at some point, something like that. If you were listening to music, maybe if you were just shopping around, looking at stuff, and people, I guess, would need to realize that, while you were shopping around, that other people that could be looking at your stuff, and you may not know it. So that's why it sure seems that way. That if all you were doing was just taking a picture of something, and you were actually, publishing. I'm like, yeah, you were actually. Like whenever you take a picture of something, it's developed, right? Whenever you develop that, then it's basically mean is to where it's not visible to everybody else yet, but still, that if you just tap on that button to where you would be able to share it, and you got the share option right here, but still, whenever you take a picture of something, even if you were listening to a certain song, though, if it's a game board, or if it's maybe an activity poster, or some source, some source of a art board or whiteboard or anything that you're working on, it sure seems that way, to where that, how many of us are going to be kind of aware of that, to where that a lot of your activity that you're doing on your phone, that, yeah, whenever you take a picture of something, you are developing that into like a development process, to like a studio. So whenever you take a picture of something, especially like on Facebook, it's going to show up right there, and then you're given these options to where where you want to go next with this step, to where if you want to go ahead and publish it, if you want to share it on this group share, or if anything, if you want to form any sort of slideshow with it, to where you add it to a story, you go ahead and piece together 5 or maybe 11 or maybe 15 or 20 different photographs, and you form a slideshow with it, like any sort of theme of some sort. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that with these photographs, though, that whenever you take a photograph, that people might even want to know too, that nowadays it's like, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, most of those pictures are saved, yeah, that they're stored on a roll of film. You take that roll of film to a photo lab, and then you have it developed, right? But a little bit of the same process with the digital software right here, but only that what you're doing is that you are able to actually have the pictures developed using the pixel format. So it's like another way of how you want to show is to where, as you take that picture, though, that you actually take the picture just by using is to where it's displayed using it as a form of pixels. It's like whenever we go digital, though, that those pictures are not stored on that. I'm like, yeah, that they're stored on the roll of film, but you don't have to go to an actual lab to get it developed. They're actually displayed right there on your device, right? Whenever we're going digital, that those pictures are showing up on that roll of film, on your account, on the phone there. And so most photographers will need to know just a little bit as to where if you're going to be taking a picture of something on your phone, if you're going to be scanning something, if you're going to be scanning a photo of something, that we would need to know that you scan a picture of something, and if you share it, if you send it to somebody else, and it's like everybody else will probably say too, that it seems like it's been more convenient for everybody else to word it to anything else that you want to share and talk about, but still, that it seems like it's been more convenient talking about photographs that you got the idea just by listening to music though. Whenever you listen to music, that you kind of get this idea to where you go ahead and draw a picture of something, something that a group of friends of yours, that you took a picture and you were singing a song, or a lot of times it sure seems that way, that whenever we listen to music, we think about photographs. So we picture in our minds about going on this road trip, going to the park, going to this activity with our friends or something like that. Going to the restaurant, going to the festivals, night outs or anything like that, going to the clubs and all that, going to the bars, you name it. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever it comes to taking a picture of something, that you may want to know too, that you may think that if that's true, to where that maybe if it only takes about maybe 5 minutes just to be able to think about that, to where that it only takes about maybe 5 minutes for your photographs to be developed, right? For them to be displayed inside the slideshow. But then at the same time, you want to know too is to where, okay, after that picture is developed, then if there's any comments that you would like to say about it, says, okay, anything about the headlines or anything like that, or the concerts though. That do you want to talk about your experience, about what you thought about the concert though? That what the weather was like, or how many people were there at the concert, and how where did you hear about this festival in town? By music radio, but still. But we're talking about though that with most photographs, so that people might even want to know too, that what exactly is an app, and I'll tell everybody here too. An app. An app is like an application. It's like an application, and kind of like maybe a little bit like a plug-in too, It's another way of how to get devices, how to get your devices to correspond. How to get your devices to correspond, to coordinate, with the account, with the login, and with the network. So it's basically, like everybody else might even say too, mainly with the network though, but still. Yeah, well, what exactly is a good example of an idea for an app? And it's like, it's like a chip. And I guess if you want to kind of look at that is towards another way of how you would describe a microchip. It's another source of a microchip toward it, it needs to be programmed and installed just to be able to function correctly on your device, right? And so, like everybody else will probably say too, that when we think about an app or we think about a device, though, that you want to know too that you shop around. If you buy concert tickets or if you order music from the stores, and let's just say that if it's not playing like it's supposed to, or it's not working, it's not coordinating. I'm like, it's saying that the file is missing or something, but still, I guess they say, like anybody say too, if you're going to be listening to music though, that there's going to be like these requirements and all that about do you have this installed or do you have that installed? But most of these devices, yeah, like the smartphones and the Apple iPhones, like a lot of those devices would have a lot of those, microchips already installed, and to where that you should have no problem being able to have those functionalities available on your devices, right? You just to be able to install them. But let's just say that, but if we're talking about for any source of digital media here with streaming, though, that we're talking about that whenever we take a picture of something, though, you're probably thinking too that yeah, whenever you take a picture of a concert, though, and let's just say if it's maybe action motion pictures, if you're trying to picture to if you're taking multiple pictures of something, and people are probably thinking too that yeah, you take multiple pictures of something, and maybe some of them that come out real dark and all that, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That yeah, this picture came out real blurry right here, and so that's why some artists might say that you go ahead and start out. The whole idea is just by creating a masterpiece right here. You go ahead and paint a picture right there of a portrait like that, and have the headlines right there for I've been hoping, and then knowing you put the year right there, music radio, and then within 3 weeks later and or something like that, and then you go ahead and you get some pictures together, or people show you pictures of something from the concert events or something like that. So like a lot of times it's like whenever we're thinking about portfolio, especially that website of some sort, that if you're familiar with how this works and how that works, and you'll want to know too is to where it all kind of begins. Is like, yeah, I want another word that I want to talk about too is to where that, yeah, it starts, That's another source of saying that I have right here. Talk about it starts, like, yeah, talk about for the Lion King or something. It starts. What does it usually mean when we say it starts? It's another funny way of saying is to where the, yeah, to where, yeah, it starts. It starts, yeah, that it's a funny way of saying to where a moment of time to where that three people want to talk three people want to talk in private or something like that. It could also it could also be another word of saying to where that it all kind of started out with yeah, decisions, or it could also be conversations and all that, but still, talk about it for its starts, though. Moments of time. Moments of time, but still, to where, yeah, I'll go and put on here moments of time to where that three people you would like to talk about something before they spread the word. Before they spread the word, yeah, Mike. Yeah, I can go ahead and just say, before they spread the word, I can just say before they pass. It's basically pass the word to somebody else. So it's another way of saying I'm like, yeah, for it starts, and yeah, at the time it's like, yeah, well, really, that whenever you start a conversation and talking about something, it sure seems that way. That, yeah, well, people ask the questions, and then possibly that people are going to say is that well, really, I would rather talk and privately about that. I don't really want them to hear. I don't want her to hear about that, whichever it could be. But still, like anybody probably say too that whenever we think about that is toward it that whenever we think about music, though, a lot of times it's like, yeah, whenever whenever we think about music, though, a lot of times it's like, yeah, you want to know too that a lot of music that we listen to a lot of times is that kind of take us a moment of time toward it. Is it going to remind you maybe of a special moment, that event that you want to go to, or maybe whenever you were listening to that song, maybe in the car that you were actually on a road trip whenever you listened to it, or you were actually yeah, maybe at a festival, maybe at a picnic or something like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way that whenever we think about music, a lot of times it sure seems that way that yeah, whenever we think about music, a lot of times that's like, but still that well, what I'm trying to say is that whenever I think about music, a lot of times that's going to kind of remind me just a little bit of being a young high school student. People that you talk to in the classrooms, and you tell them about a CD player. CDs that you have, maybe mixed soundtracks that you listen to for a few of your favorite music artists, and maybe also anything that you have on your iPod or anything like that. So every time I listen to music, of course, it's maybe going to remind me just maybe a little bit of prom dance too, a little bit of prom, homecoming dance or anything like that. But it sure seems that way that whenever we think about music, though, a lot of times is that does that really take you into a moment to where that yeah, talk about for photographs. So that's why it sure seems that way that photographs, and yeah, talk about most girls, yeah, most girls want to, ours are most blonde, most beautiful, and like so yeah, a lot of time I'm like, yeah, I have not memorized all the lyrics, but let's just say that, like anybody say, that if you're yeah, and whenever you do listen to songs a lot of times, it sure seems that way that you try to memorize all the lyrics and trying to think about what all the lyrics necessarily think saying all that. But a lot of times though, it's like, yeah, whenever you listen to music a lot of times, that you think about photographs, and maybe you think about certain moments of time to where that whenever you met somebody, whenever based on your experience, to where yeah, you actually won the tickets, or you actually purchased these tickets just by listening to the radio stations. And let's just say if that's the case, that you actually picked up a paper, or you actually looked at you actually bought a case of a soda. And let's just say that yeah, if it was at the movies or something like that, and you seen an advertisement about maybe a concert, live concert, maybe of the Eagles or something like that. So yeah, other sorts of music of same, but still. But talk about for Haley Sample, I'm like, yeah, with her music, and whenever I like on Pandora though, that whenever I listen to that music though, that it talks about, say, for I've been hoping, so I've been hoping, no, and it's like good on paper. And it's like, yeah, I've been hoping, so yeah, a lot of times whenever we think about I've been hoping, no, it's like a good on paper, good, but still, that in case anybody say, yeah, if you were to sing a song, no, why don't you just sing it? Sing it out loud and just shout it out loud, but still, that I've been hoping, to like, so yeah. So if I were to be thinking about a song such as, for I've Been Hoping or something like that, and maybe I would think about is that what exactly is that song going to remind you of necessarily? It reminds me of being a young college student. It reminds me a lot of being a college student and actually thinking about, talking to a lot of these college students and knowing about the sound quality, and also your ability to where what you can do so far as storytelling, telling stories, and also the sound of the music, and also the dancing, the dancing, and getting to know a few of the people in the group, and yeah, anything else that comes to your mind, especially. So it sure seems that way that whenever I think about a song such as, it's like, yeah, Party in USA or something like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way. That whenever we think about music, though, that are we necessarily thinking about politics too much of the time, or if anything, like everybody else might even say too, that whenever we think about photographs, so that whenever we yeah, social media or anything else, but still. But I just want to tell everybody here too that whenever we think about photographs, a lot of times that with those photographs, with most of those photographs, that whenever you take a photograph and it's developed, and then you can actually share it, and like I say, oh yeah, if it's developed, and you can actually share it and post it, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That people might even say that yeah, well, back in the old earlier days that you would actually take a photograph, and a lot of those a lot of that media was actually stored onto a roll of film, and you would actually go to a photo lab, you would go to the photo center just to be able to develop the film and all that. But still, so it sure seems that way. That if we're talking about concert tickets or any source of music, though, music that you get at the music store, and anybody that might want to know too that yeah, there's live streaming and all that you can get in the music store, but they're like to say that yeah, you don't have to wait for that CD to come in the mail too much of the time, that you can actually download the music. You can actually buy that music, and actually it's actually available in your library, in the music library. So any music library, any sorts of library that you can, like, I don't have, any sorts of Amazon or Pandora account open, right? But still, what you're looking at right here is a poster right here. But still, I tell everybody here too that yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, but still, I know with me though that whenever I look at some of my paintings right here, and people may want to know too that why don't you show us anything like about your account activities, so far as maybe the Samsung store, to where that you can actually show us how you do stuff. And but still, that I'm talking to everybody here about photographs, and also if we've seen this right here, I've talked about for music radio, but this is what this is right here, that did the Photoshop work right here. But it sure seems that way, that whenever you look at a photograph, what exactly is that telling us necessarily? Like, well, really, that if you're using it like for a poster design or something like that, or you include like music or radio right there, just because if anybody's listening, and like thinking too that yeah, well, if you listen to those radio stations, and you listen to a lot of that music that they play on it, and you probably want to know too what exactly that comes to your mind whenever you think about that music. And you think as to where, yeah, do you think about vacation most of the time? Do you think about prom dance? Anything like that. But like anybody say too that yeah, do you think about ice cream? Ice cream, strawberry ice cream. And like I know that Deja Vu or something like that. But anyway, I know that most of the time with the melodic music artists, though, it sure seems that way. That whenever we think about that whenever we think about pictures, though, and we think about maybe a few of our music artists, and you want to know too, is to where that yeah, it all starts by saying this, to where you were actually shopping around, and you seen something in the store that you want to check out or something like that, or it could have maybe been a t-shirt or maybe a logo or something like that. But like everybody else might even want to know too that you're probably thinking is toward it, that whenever you're working on something, and like a painting, and people want to know too that you will actually work on this. It seems like it's all about communication, right? That what exactly are people thinking about while you're working on this? And I like to say, yeah, you start out with this painting right here just by trying to draw the details right there, the eyes and the mouth right there, until you decide to go ahead and add right there the title right there for I've Been Hoping right there for Haley Sandfield. And you're likely want to know too that if it's maybe Taylor Swift, or if it's any other source of music artist, and you want to know too that yeah, well, really though, what exactly, but still, can you show me how you do that? And like, if people might even want to know too that, can you really, can you just show me how you do that? Show me how that works. But anyway, but I thought people would be able to like to see this right here, but still. And a lot of times I'll tell people too. I'm like, yeah. Talk about what does more mean? So what does it usually mean when people say, music? What does music and more mean? So in case of if there's any source of streaming codes or anything like that, music. What does music streaming code, and more mean? Well, what does that mean? Yeah, streaming code and more mean right there. Well, what does that mean right there? It's another way of saying it. It's like a package. Like you'll be able to find it that and more. You'll be able to find it and more. So I have right here, like everybody else might even want to know too, that most of the time, whenever you do buy any sort of package deal, I might go, yeah. Whenever you do order something online, a lot of times that you see that whenever you do buy a music album that comes with maybe 5 soundtracks or something like that, maybe by the Beatles or something like that, and you would see something like find that and more. So a lot of times, what does it usually mean when we say more? That it's another way of saying is toward well, that's not all that you get. You also have access to maybe the live stream talk, and maybe also that if you want to also chat with somebody live, maybe like connect to maybe to the club or something like that. And so it sure seems that way that that and more, and a lot of times I usually do see that. If we're talking about maybe Amazon Music or something like that, and so it sure seems that way that whenever you tune into the radio stations, most of the time, we probably thinking is that you tune into the radio stations a lot of times, and you would hear the winning numbers being called, and you would also they'll tell you that you'll call this number to if you want to join the conversation, or that if you want to go ahead and follow up. And like there's a number you can text information to, stuff like that. But what I usually do, so it sure seems that way that in case if anybody were to say that any source of communication that we would see right here that we may find right here, and people will say is toward that well, if you're going to have any source of advertisement or any source of poster design, any source of flyer, or any source of any source of poster design, and people always say is toward it that you'll try to include a text message. What text number should those people should anybody if they see a poster design like that, maybe at a subway station, or maybe at a bookstore or somewhere like that, or maybe like your digital media, if they see something like this in like any sort of store, and they're going to probably want to know too that you can actually text text to this number here and get information about that. And so that's why it sure seems that way, to where it all kind of starts is to where that you were actually working on the painting right here before it was promoted, that you were actually trying to work on getting the colors and everything really to show up, to where like let's just say if you were actually working with the painting tools right here, just drawing the details of the mouth and then the face right there, and then the wording of saying right there for for the poster right there. And so it sure seems that way that most artists would say that to where the original idea came about is to where that you were actually trying to develop a draft, to where that you were trying to make the painting as artistic as you could, and then before it got promoted, that this is what people would see right here, that they actually see right there is just a poster right there of a little purple background before it was promoted. And so that's why it sure seems that way that people are going to maybe be asking later on that hey, I want to see what you're talking about and all that, or hey, you should well, how come you didn't add this or how come you didn't add that? But still. But I'm also talking about that, during the time whenever I was working on this, I actually was thinking about mainly about the you streaming music live. Whenever I listen to a lot of these radio stations, though, that they'll say is to where you can actually listen to the music live. You can actually when you listen to them on live stream, and just by listening to them by going to their websites and all that. And so it sure seems that way that there'll probably be there's probably a lot of hundreds or maybe thousands of listeners connecting all around the country, and you probably want to know too that you want to know too that yeah, well, that whenever you first went to that radio station, you actually went there, just if anything, just to listen to the weather forecast, or if anything, just to shop around, or maybe just to listen to music or anything else that they were talking about on air, until you actually heard about maybe the live event, the concert that was coming, to your town or something like that. So a lot of times it's like people might say, yeah, you bought the iced tea. You bought that iced tea at the store. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, if you were at the you were at the store, you were at the store shopping around. You were at the store shopping. You were at the store shopping until you came you came to this ad right here. This poster ad right here. And like everybody else will probably say too that's really about how you're able to get people's attention too. But still, a lot of times it's like, yeah, if you were out shopping and you came across this ad right here, and so a lot of times everybody else might even say that yeah, well, that's how you were able to get notified, or that's how I'm like, yeah, maybe not everybody knows how that works. So that's why it sure seems that way. That yeah, if most of the time, if listening to the radio, that you're able to get a better idea about how this works or how that works, that's what's the same. But anyway, I know that's a lot of information there. But anyway, but I thought I'd go and talk to everybody here about that. Knowing about yeah, whenever you listen to the radio, a lot of times it's going to remind you of being in college. You study hard in college, and you listen to a lot of these music artists, and you're probably thinking too that quite a few of those music artists are going to remind me of the college years. And you want to know too that why is it that? Well, bars and restaurants, especially whenever they play music, whenever these restaurants play those songs, a lot of times it's going to remind you of being on campus. It's going to remind you of going to the concerts and all that. And so that's why it sure seems that way. That whenever we think about music, though, it's going to remind you just a little bit as to where that, yeah, while you were listening to that song, that you were working on your homework, or you were actually shopping around. And that's just a little bit about like how being by say, yeah, the source of communication, And I guess that's another way of how you want to word it too, or is to word, yeah, communication status. And so really that whenever we think about communication, though, that can we really also think about a relationship also? Relationship, maybe partnership. Partnership. Partnership also. So the way we think about that, though, is that relationships and partnerships, and so a lot of times it's like, yeah, it all kind of starts as to where you go out, you look at the catalogs, and you look at the newspapers, you go out to the store and you go shopping, and a lot of times it's like a lot of times do you find a little bit more than what what you came there for, in a lot of times. And most of the time, like everybody else will probably say too, that whenever you listen to the radio, do you find more than what you expected a lot of times? And everybody else might even say too that, yeah, well, for the most part, that you listen to the radio, and then if you hear a song that you really liked, then chances are that you're gonna say is toward you're gonna go ahead and maybe that yeah, you'll try to connect with them on social media, a few of those country singers, or maybe yeah, soft rock music artist, and any other sorts of artists. Really, but the way I think about you, though, that whenever it comes to photographs, so that based on the knowledge about photographs, and like anybody say too, that yeah, you actually were able to put this together at your own time. You actually wrote this song. You wrote the song, and you came up with the song lyrics or anything. Yeah, any song suggestions, and if you want to maybe join a band or a rock group or something like that, join a rock group, and so it sure seems that way. That whenever you were first introduced to how the music is performed, and anybody might even say too that if there's any events that you would like to join later on, or any concert tickets, yeah, you want to figure out, you would like to see, how does that work, so how does it work, and how did you find out about that, and so really, I mean, I know that's a lot of information right there, but I thought I'd go and talk about that, mention that. But still, you're being a young college student, and anybody says like, yeah, I've been hoping, and so yeah, I've been hoping for like a so the story goes as to where yeah, good on paper, like an I've been hoping, and so a lot of times it sure seems that way that you've been hoping for the best, or you've been hoping for a good partnership, or something like that. But the way I think about it too, that when we shop around for anything, what exactly is that telling us? Is that necessarily telling us that you kind of get the idea, you get a better understanding, you get a lot better understanding. I'll go and write that down real quick right here. You get a better understanding about the shopping, about your experience with ordering that CD or ordering that song. Your experience with ordering that song, on from that store. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that whenever we think about that, though, the better understanding. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, you go ahead and order a song from the store, and then you come up, and then you see these codes right here, that I'm like, yeah, these streaming codes, to where it say that you can actually listen live just by yeah, sign up to create a library, and go to the website, and so that's awesome. Yeah, that's what's up, but still, I know that's a lot of information right there. But anyway, but I want to talk to everybody here about photographs, though. That anything about the storytelling and any photographs, and it sure seems that way. That whenever you do take a photograph of something, and a lot of times it seems like the dirt just doesn't really explain a lot of details right there. But it's all about for details, and like yeah, storytelling and mystery story or anything else, for how does the story come, But the way I think about, though, that whenever you do listen to music, though, it sure seems that way, that based on the best things of happening, but you say for I've been hoping, but talk about for if it's strawberry ice cream or something like that, but road trips or anything like that. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.